PEEPanEIP to push the bomb to December 2021. To talk about the difficulty bomb, we have got the author of the improvement proposal and also a contributor to PEEPanEIP series, James Hancock. Welcome, James. It's always fun to have you on PEEPanEIP. But until today, you were on the host side, so this is the first time you are on the hot seat as a guest. I wouldn't miss the opportunity to know you more. So before we get into the proposal discussion, maybe please talk a little bit about you, how you got into Ethereum and the journey so far.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's funny being on this side. I feel like I don't know what to do, but normally just kind of I'll go along. So any questions or interruptions at any time, please feel free to do that. So I started into Ethereum in 2018. I was in Washington DC, and I drove a car to Toronto, and I just was committed to that summer finding cryptocurrency people to work with. So I got an apartment. I met some friends. I was there for like 3 months. Nothing really materialized until the last week. I snuck into EdCon Toronto. I went to yoga earlier, and I had my yoga mat with me, and because the yoga mat and my yoga clothes were so distracting, no one checked that I had a tag or not. So that was there. I met some Ethereum people there. My first thing I got into was ETH Signals with Griff Green, and that was awesome. I flew then to Berlin, and so far it had been kind of ancillary to the Ethereum ecosystem, but actually my introduction to core Ethereum and to working on, and what ultimately led to me working at the Ethereum Foundation, is this proposal that I did at the Status Hackathon. That was right after DevCon. That was in Prague. So I think that was 2018, right? Yeah, 2018 fall.
Yep.
So I take the train down. We go and TJ Rush and I was there, and Lane Redding was there, and Lane started talking about this difficulty bomb and how it was in Ethereum, and I was just kind of like, what in the world does that mean? They were trying to figure out when it would go off and what does all of that mean. So I spent the hackathon basically researching how does the difficulty bomb work, and then figuring out how can we figure out what it's going to do when, so we can make plans for it appropriately. And so I made this presentation. This is the same one that I gave at the Status Hackathon. And then that was kind of my introduction to people at the EF, and then from there I started kind of volunteering, doing dev, call stuff, and went into that. Anyway, that was probably longer than it needed to be, but that's the story into Ethereum.
That's all good. It's always fun to know people we are working with. Thank you so much for your introduction. So without further ado, let's peep in.
Yes, so this is the presentation, and like bum bum boom, when will the time bomb happen to you? And so when Ethereum first started, they wanted a kind of, there's a whole bunch of reasons that people like the difficulty bomb or think that it existed or different things. But as far as I understand, the original reason was a forcing function that when we move to proof of stake, the miners can't just keep the chain going. So if you wait long enough, the Ethereum blockchain will just stop making blocks in a reasonable time to actually make, like, the block time will just start increasing. So there's these formulas in the yellow paper that take a while to kind of, like, took us a while to kind of figure out and get into. You can see as the difficulty bomb goes off, this is the average block time. You can see that they start getting longer and longer and longer in like these chunks.
Did you want to talk about like the different parts of the equation over there, or even like give a brief overview about exactly like what makes the difficulty bomb kick in, or maybe why the ridges seem to have retractions every time they start going up?
Yeah,
That's
we'll
like-
start. Yeah, we'll start with this, and then I'll go deeper into it later on. So the as we start first with Ethereum has a block time targeting mechanism. So the hash rate in Ethereum is always going up or down, but we want to have consistent block times. So there's a mechanism inside of it that targets block time. And the way Ethereum's works is if it's below 10 seconds, it increases the difficulty. If it's above 20 seconds, so the block, so it finds a new block, it decreases the difficulty. And if it's like over 30 seconds, it does it more. And if it's over 40 seconds, it does it more. So there's sort of, on one end, it can correct further than on the other end. So there's where was it? The blockchain, the block time mechanism ends up targeting about 13, 14 seconds there on average. And we don't actually know why that's the value, because it's not targeting 13 seconds individually, like specifically. It's literally just saying if it's less than 10 seconds, do something. If it's more than 20 seconds, do something. And then the complex interaction ends up having it have an equilibrium at the 13.5. And I think it has to do something with, someone sent me that the exponential distribution of the Poisson distribution of block times end up being the geometric mean is about like 13 out of from 10 to 20. That's not super critical. So when they put in the difficulty bomb, what it does, how it works is it messes with that mechanism that Ethereum uses to target block times. And it does so in like a kind of interesting step function. So you can see in here these like little green dots, and then it goes up flat, and then they're green flat for a while, and then it jumps up, and then it's flat for a while, and it jumps up, and it's flat for a while. So this is every 100,000 blocks, the difficulty bomb increments 1. And that has, like, it increments to the next step. So it's sort of like you get this kind of interesting step function. And you see that translated into block time. So if you look at this, every single one of these sawtooths is 100,000 blocks, the difficulty bomb kicks it up a notch. 100,000 blocks, difficulty bomb kicks it up a notch. Does that help? Should I go further into that, William? Or am I losing everybody already?
No, that sounds great. I mean, maybe as a bit of a follow-up in the slide before this, it looks like anytime there's one of those 100,000 step, like 100,000 block steps, it looks like then the block time kind of recedes a bit. Does that also have to do with the equation, or is that just some also kind of inscrutable property of the hash power that gets put into Ethereum?
It does. It is this. That's well spotted. And the blockchain, even though it's over 20 seconds here, 25 seconds here, like the difficulty mechanism is still trying to get below 20. But the difficulty
okay, I get it.
Hard. So like it first increments, and then you see the targeting mechanism doing its best to get it back down below 10 or below 20, but the difficulty bomb increasing is too much. So it can't completely overtake.
Got it.
That's actually a good segue into, so this is way previously when hash rate was less. So the first time the difficulty bomb, the hash rate looked like this. And then the next time the hash rate was almost double. So why does that matter? Is because this is all, I actually brought a prop to kind of help explain. So if you think about in this equation here, difficulty equals parent, the the difficulty of the next block involves the value of the last difficulty. So there's sort of like a feedback loop that's happening, because you look at the last one and then you use that to tell you how much you're going to push up or down. So the example I like to give is that the difficulty bomb is like this balloon, and it's always there in Ethereum. But my arm is like the targeting mechanism. And the strength of my arm is based on the current difficulty of the system. And by difficulty, I mean this, like the blockchain difficulty version of the word difficulty, where this is how hard it is to find a block probabilistic. So if I have a really high hash rate, and if I have a really high difficulty, my arm is really, really strong. If I have a low difficulty, my arm is weaker. But most of the time, the difficulty bomb is so weak that it doesn't matter. I can easily go up and down. But at some point, so every 100,000 blocks, it adds another balloon. And then it adds another balloon, and it adds another balloon. And it keeps being easy for a while, but at some point, it turns into the house and up, and my arm is no longer strong enough to get back to equal.
Can I try saying that back to you just to make sure I got it?
Yep.
Basically what you're saying is that the difficulty bomb incrementally adds some difficulty, but that difficulty is a bit constant. So if there's a really, really high hash rate, so each little increase in the difficulty isn't going to make so much of a difference to the hash power that anyway is mining on the network. But over time, as that goes up and up and up and up, eventually does get to the point where it does significantly affect block time.
Yes. So the amount of difficulty that it's adding is a constant, but the amount that the network can respond with the targeting mechanism is relative to the difficulty.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So it's kind of weird and complicated how it works, and this is part of why it's hard to know when it goes off, because in order to know when it goes off, you need to know what the difficulty is at that time, and no one knows what the difficulty is going to be in 4 months, in a year, or even less. In today, we know in a week. Pretty good idea. The farther you go, the less you know. And then crazy things. Yeah.
Yeah, like China going on right now. I think we probably actually have a hard time knowing what the hash rate's going to be in a week right now.
Yeah, the hash rate's currently going down, and we don't. No one would have predicted that at the time we're trying to do suddenly hash rate would go down, even though prices going up. I think it sounds like you got it. Is everybody else any other questions that could help kind of get us into this? Yeah. So here is the E. We go back to this. The difficulty is the parent difficulty, so the last block, plus E. E has its own function. I don't know if I put it in here, but it's a constant function. I thought I had it in here. It just will add this number. So like as we were saying, the amount of balloons that get added is the same, but how strong I am isn't the same. So the 2016, 2017, when the difficulty bomb showed up, it was way lower value than when it showed up this last time. So kind of the takeaways from that is the higher the hash rate is, the longer my arm can react, and so the longer it stays hidden. And then, because of the nature of every step is an exponentially larger step, it will explode faster when we see it, because this increase gets bigger and bigger and bigger every time. And so then it's hidden, it shows up, and then boom, we have a problem. Yeah, so then TJ and Ed and Lane and I kind of did this for the Status Hackathon, and it was really fun. So that was kind of the way the bomb works and how we figured out how it worked. Now we get into today and what's going to happen next. So we have this EIP-3554, which is an adjustment to the difficulty bomb. And the function we use, if we look back at this, the block, it's a constant what the difficulty bomb will be based on the current block. So if we're always increasing in blocks, how do we make that less? And the answer is we fake it by adding in a fake block number to the difficulty bomb only part. So the normal Ethereum is going on, its block number is going up. But as part of the difficulty calculation, we minus 9. So for the proposal is a minus 9,700,000 blocks. So we're setting the ice age or the difficulty bomb back in time, 9,700,000 blocks. Which that will happen at the Berlin Fort when that happens. So at that time, we'll kind of rewind the clock a bit for that 100,000 step function to go back in time. This is the function that I use to come up with when and how much to adjust. So something that I noticed, I went back in time and looked at all the times the difficulty bomb had went off. You can look at the block time and you'll see that like 3 times this kind of pattern has emerged. And the ratio when that shows up is when the difficulty adjustment ratio compared to the current difficulty. So the difficulty bomb compared to the current difficulty, the ratio, when it goes over 0.1, then you start seeing effects.
As in that's when the sawtooth pattern starts showing up.
Yes. So this is a program, it's just a Python script anyone can run. Just pop this into your whatever and put in your block numbers, the current difficulty, how much you want to adjust, and how many months in advance you want to look, and it'll give you this ratio of the difficulty compared to the difficulty bomb. I'm using the word difficulty twice there, so I think that might be kind of confusing. How is questions on this? So the amount that the balloons are pushing up versus how strong my arm is, the ratio, if that gets over 0.1, we start seeing when it happens. We modeled it out with this script using the current difficulty, and we said, let's just use that for now and see what happens. And the time that we, based on this adjustment of 9,700,000, we calculated we'd probably see in the first week of November the difficulty bomb start going off. And I then ran a simulation of what would happen if we had half the difficulty or if we had double the difficulty. So if Ethereum hash rate jumped up into 1 million, or like a lot more, then when might it show up? And if Ethereum hash rate halved and the difficulty halved, and would it show up? And it's still pretty close to within that time frame. So as we get closer, we're going to want to run that script again to just check. Probably are going to want to run it for right now to see how the current difficulty bomb is doing because of the hash rate decrease due to China happening.
Right. I was about to ask, do you know roughly what the hash rate was when you ran that? Like you were probably in the upper 600s, I'm guessing.
Look at it.
I took a quick look while you were talking. We're holding it around 500 right now. A little bit.
Yeah. So the difficulty is, it's hard to tell because this is such a big number.
But I'm going to assume that's 739 because I don't think it's dipped further than that. It's 739 terahertz, just to be more specific. And we're at about 500 terahertz right now. So I mean, the truth is,
No,
that
this is the
almost a
difficult.
one-third,
This
yeah.
isn't the hash rate.
Oh, the hash rate. Yeah, you're right. I conflated the difficulty and the hash rate. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, so we want to actually look at the
Historical hash rate. Yeah.
for the difficulty, because the hash rate is what ends up affecting the difficulty. The difficulty is what is actually used in calculating the adjustment to the in the mechanism. Where am I just not seeing? It must be different. Never did. So when I did it, it was, what day was this? The 6th. So it was about here. Yeah, 7. So it was 7 trillion. The difficulty. I guess that's in tera hashes too. Tera something. So it's gone down to 6. So it hasn't halved. So it's not going to affect the December calculation very much, but it probably affects the calculation that's happening right now for what will happen before.
Interesting. Yeah. Also going to depend if like we see hash power get plugged back in somewhere else and all that. Yeah, very, very interesting.
So we went through the fake number. We have the script on how this we predicted, looking for the ratio when the correct ratio happens. And that's kind of, you can go, so you can actually go back. I thought I had this on this thread, but I must not have hit send. Oh yeah, here it is. So the first bomb went off May 1st in 2017. The coefficient reached 1, and the adjustment was 0 in the beginning. Then the adjustment was 3 million. Then the adjustment was 5 million. So you can see how we push this for the back time. And then it goes up again. That's all the times when it did. So I think that's it as far as that. What about questions, or I can turn off this presentation now? There's like, it's interesting because there's not like a lot to it, but it's weirdly complicated at the same time.
Right. First of all, thank you for explaining this, like going into numbers and all these charts are really helpful. I have a few questions. So my first question is about the delay calculation. My understanding is the proposal EIP-3554 that is getting into London is the 4th time, like the 4th EIP, which is there for pushing the difficulty bomb. Earlier we had EIP-69 in June 2017 and EIP-1234 in July 2018 and EIP-2384 that was Muir Glacier in December 2019. You just have shown in the Fellowship of Italy Magician thread. So this calculation of days, like the Muir Glacier, if I take for example, that was the last one that was like 4 million blocks for 611 days. And this time it is 500,000 extra blocks, roughly 5 months, I believe. So what is the basis of this delay calculation? It is just the time period that the Ethereum community wants to push it, or is there any algorithm for doing this?
You mean on how do we decide the day we target, or how do we target the day we decide?
Yeah. So whenever we decide like, okay, this is the proposal and it will go for pushing this many blocks, is it just because we want next upgrade to happen at that time, or is there any calculation going in the background that suggests that this should be done? Because I see a big difference between what was there in Muir Glacier and this time. So just trying to understand why is this difference?
Yep. So every time it's been a little bit different. The first time I guess the first time I was there for doing Istanbul, or the pre-Istanbul I don't remember why they did that. But so the reason why there's a big gap last time with Muir Glacier, and then there's a smaller one this time, is because what Istanbul was delayed. It took a long time to get through. We didn't think the difficulty bomb was going to go off when it did, and it started going off. So there was Eric Connor came into the Alcor Devs chat room and said, "Hey, block times are getting longer." And we're like, "Oh yeah, you're right." So this was late November, and Istanbul was already ready to go. So we made it. We didn't want to change Istanbul, so we made a second fork that went out. That the Muir Glacier was to address the difficulty bomb, and that was the only one. And we just set it. We literally set it back as far as possible. So we went back in time as many blocks until you got to 0 as you could, or as we could at the time. And that was just because we wanted to not have to worry. We didn't want it to show up on a thing again. We didn't want to have it show up unannounced. And we thought we were going to do forks a little bit more. This kind of gets into hard fork coordination stuff, and also just when and how we plan things. So then we were Berlin ended up being delayed quite a bit. Berlin ended up being delayed quite a bit. And so that was because of another EIP with the BLS precompile ended up taking a long time to figure out how to make it safe. There's a whole, if you want to know about that, go look at the BLS precompile, right, and others that went into this. So that ended up being delayed quite a bit. Then when Berlin happened, we decided we wanted to be a little more smart about when we're setting it. So we strategically said we want to have something done. Either the merge will happen by December, or we'll have some feature fork that can happen within that time frame that will allow us to address the IC. And it kind of goes into there's a couple reasons why the Ice Age can exist, and you can subscribe to whichever one of these you want. I don't think there's like a canonical, this is the reason. There just is a few that make sense, and some people believe in others more strongly. So the first one is it keeps core devs accountable, because there are people that there are the keys to the GitHub that has the actual repository. Like, people have commit rights to them. And if one day they said, we're done, we're not going to make any more changes, there's not really much people can do about it. But in this case, someone literally has to make a change to the code base, or the change slows down into nothing. So there isn't like this tyranny of core dev possibility that kind of keeps that. The other one is, it's just nice to have a timing function, like trying to coordinate hard forks and upgrades and changes to Ethereum is super complicated and difficult from all the different aspects of the community that are touched by it. And so it's easy to kind of kick something down the can. So having we need to do something by this date means we have a very easy way to say any EIP that's ready by this time can make it in. And any that's not are just going to have to wait, because we have to do something at this time no matter what. And that just makes it a lot easier to coalesce on what is like feasible for the time and effort to do right now as core developers. Then the third one is that for some reason, if there's a fork, like someone wanted to do a hostile fork takeover or whatever, and we can go back and see how ETC, because the Ethereum Classic had the difficulty bomb in it when the fork happened, and they had to go in and disable it. So doing a fork of Ethereum is actually, you have to, anyone who wants to do it, you can't run an old version of Geth and just say, great. You actually have to have enough of a dev team and a way to get the information out, like a way to you need to be able to make a release, and you need to be able to distribute the release in like a trusted way on your own to get people to install your code, to get people to install your thing. So like, it's not like it's people, sometimes you hear the rebuttal that, oh, it's like the difficulty bomb is such an easy thing to handle or to change. Like if we go into literally the one line of fake block number equals X is the only thing that changes when we're changing for the hard. So if someone goes into the code base and changes that one number and then releases the client, that's all they have to do. So you'd think that would be kind of easy, but the hard part isn't tech making the code change. The hard part is getting legitimacy around your code, around your releasing the code change. Because if you want to download Geth, you go to the Geth repository, and that has a long like history of legitimacy among things for security, among people, like who is it that manages it, and all of those things. And that's the same for every client. So same with Besu, same with Nethermind, same with Aragon. Like there's a, I don't know if provenance is the right word, but there's a legitimacy that's part of that repository that you can't fork. You have to make that on your own. So someone who wants to release, they need to figure out a way to get the change, then everyone to believe that the code is actually what they're saying it does, and all this stuff, and you're downloading a random exe from a random file from somewhere that you don't know what it does, and no one has trusted before. That's a very difficult thing to do to coordinate a release around. So that's kind of like 4 different reasons that the difficulty bomb is affecting things and reasons why people like it or people don't like it. Let me see if I can summarize. So
and I guess,
yeah, questions.
sorry. No, I was gonna say, looking at that, so I think I've seen the question actually just start to surface now. I mean, I think one of the kind of original reasons out of what you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier also, was to kind of push towards transitioning to proof of stake. And now that that actually does seem to be on the horizon somewhere, do you see a future for the difficulty bomb once we're on proof of stake? Or do you think that do you think it should be disabled, will be disabled, shouldn't be disabled, or anything else?
So this would be totally my own opinion, not the
Official
other
position
core
of the
devs
Ethereum
or
Foundation.
yeah, I've officially left the Ethereum Foundation, so it's even further than it used to be. There's a thread somewhere actually on the Ethereum Magicians or ETH Research about like should we keep the difficulty bomb in Ethereum when we move proof of stake, because that you're right, that's like the other reason that when proof of stake launch happens, the proof of work chain will slow down until and that will just happen on its own because of the difficulty bomb. So as far as should we do it or not, if I was them and from my experience of trying to coordinate changes, I would leave it in, or I would put in a different way of doing it first of all. So I would not do the Ice Age itself in the way that proof of work did it, but I would have something that then is a good accountability metric enforcing function for core devs to do stuff until we deemed that like the protocol is ready for ossification, and it's like we're like, yeah, this is solid. All the big things that we want to do with Ethereum are in, and we don't need to keep doing these hard forks to keep them going. Then I would say at that time. So I would leave it in for that reason, just because it gives a really good scheduling for development.
Yeah, I think like followed some of the discussion around RANDAO and like how to manage the things, but that would be a separate topic altogether. So just to sum up, will this the upgrade going on in Middle London be the final EIP either for like upgrade, or we can expect one more?
It depends. It depends on if we have in December, if it's the merge, done.
Okay.
If in December it's a feature fork, like what we have seen normally with Ethereum, then you'll probably do one Otherwise in January, we'll have like 45-second block time.
Right.
That would be yeah. And I wanted to say one more thing. So keeping it, there are notable members of the core devs that want it gone and have wanted it gone forever. And other ones who like it and don't like it. So it's definitely do your own research and figure out, like, there are smart people on both sides that have really good reasons. And so it's kind of a matter of them figuring it out amongst themselves. And then the community also, like anyone watching this, if you feel like there's a reason to have it or a reason not to have it, the feedback on why is really important.
So my next question is around the signal of Ice Age being noticeable. I remember you mentioned about like how people can actually see, like, higher the hash rate, longer it can stay hidden. So was wondering, is there any effect of market price as well on the difficulty bump, or is just the hash rate that is imposing any changes or making
So
it?
it's a long chain of things that affect other things. So you can make the tie. There isn't like the price affects hash rate thus, like a scientific, this is what will happen. But you can do some economic generalizations that make sense. Like if the price is going up, then the amount that miners or block producers are making is going up. So more people are going to want to mine. So then the difficulty will, if more people start mining, there's more competition, the difficulty goes up. So usually you'll see hash rate following price, where if there's a price increase, like you can actually let's see, you can see when the 2017 graph and stuff. Well, I guess not exactly. But when like miners turn off when it's not economical for them to mine, miners turn on when it is, and that has to be price. So price then leads to hash rate changes. Hash rate changes leads to difficulty changes. Difficulty changes directly affect the calculation of the difficulty.
I mean, I guess you could also, I seem to remember seeing people theorizing around the point that if the Ice Age does kick in also, that it should have some kind of general economic effect, because the ether's emission rate will then begin to slow. As in, if we're expecting an inflation rate of whatever ether per day, then if the Ice Age kicks in, then emission goes down because we have less blocks per day that are generating ether. And that theoretically that should drive a bit of scarcity. I don't know if there's been any modeling done from when like those times that the Ice Age kicked in. It always struck me as something that probably should never have gotten to the point where it was economically significant. But do you know if there's been any work done also just like the effect of the Ice Age on the kind of like monetary policy of Ethereum as it does?
So there's actually some interesting history about this too. I'm glad you brought this up. So first, the effect, if you think of it as proportional to, maybe I should just share my screen again. Let me make sure I find the right thing. So if you look at, I need to go to the time, block time chart. How are we doing on time? I want to like keep more of this. This is fun for me. So you can.
We're doing great.
Yeah, so we got this. So if you think about it as a proportion to normal, this relative to normal is maybe like 5%. And wavy math, but you can think of, so you're making not that much here. That's about twice. So the block time is twice as long. So you're getting about half of the block reward you would expect during that time. So in theory, hash rate probably would turn off, but in practice, this function explodes so quickly, there's no way you can keep up. And if hash rate starts turning off, it makes it worse. So if miners start turning off because they're not profitable, the strength of the arm goes down. So then the difficulty bomb pushes up harder. And so you actually get longer and longer block times.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you would it's not an effective so in the argument that it would somehow get to like an equilibrium or something, or like it could go down enough that it would matter, that doesn't really hold water. But that it affects the economic policy and how much Ethereum is minted definitely happens. And so the first two times when they did the difficulty bomb, the fork to address the difficulty bomb, they paired it with the reductions to supply. So it's either it started out as 5 ETH per block, Ethereum did, and then they went to 3, and then they went to 2. And when they went from 5 to 3 was the same time they did the difficulty bomb. When they went from 3 to 2, the same time they did the difficulty bomb. And Istanbul was the first time, I think, or the one after that, when I started getting involved, was the first time we had a only, I guess maybe it was Muir Glacier was the first time we had
Yeah.
a difficulty bomb only EIP. And there was like a discussion about, is that a problem? Because there's some, like the longer that Ethereum has proof of work, the more issuance happens from proof of work. And so there's some, is there some kind of initial promise or economic something that was made in the beginning of the white paper or yellow paper or whatever that needs to be kept? I don't think, I think it changed. It started as kind of that attitude and then changed to this is just how we manage release cycles kind of stuff for Ethereum. I don't know, it kind of gets into the controversial land pretty quickly. As far as whenever you're touching Ether issuance in any way. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
I believe that it does.
So my last question is about the testnet. So like we are expecting London upgrade soon, and we are expecting the proposals going on Godly testnet on June 30th. I understand this difficulty bomb is never activated on Godly network, the test network, or any kind of POA chains for people who are learning it for the first time. Could you briefly talk about what a POA chain is and why the difficulty bomb proposal or the Ice Age is not activated on a POA chain for testing purposes?
Yeah, so the POA stands for proof of authority, and I'm not an authority on proof of authority. So, but as far as my understanding goes, that in quotes, we'll start with Robston, which is a testnet that has proof of work. It's the closest thing that what happens on mainnet. There are miners who are mining on Robston and finding blocks, and the difficulty adjustment algorithm, like the block time targeting mechanism, exists on Robston, and it's working. When you go to any of the other ones, Goerli, Coven, Rinkeby, they're all POA networks, and they don't have miners. So instead, they have a group of authorities who are signers who say, these are the next blocks. And they don't have a timing mechanism at all. They just work together, and they say, they pick literally every 13 seconds or something like that. They make a block. So it's much closer to how in proof of stake, the staking block producers have a block time that they stick to, and their job is to coordinate and keep that time. Versus in proof of work world, there is miners and hash rate is kind of free flowing, and you need to adapt the system to target the time. So the difficulty bomb never goes live on Coven or Goerli, it doesn't even matter, because there's no block targeting mechanism to even target a difficulty bomb 4.
That is good. So we are very close to the hour. Would like to wrap it up. On behalf of Ethereum cat herders, thank you so much, James, for taking out time and talking about one of the most popular terms that we have been hearing for a very long time, yet very few people understand how it actually works, and you have explained with the script, the program. I hope that is going to be very helpful for new people who have just started learning about the Ethereum and the proof of work. I can say with the pride that I am one of those lucky ones who got to work with you closely, especially when you were working on Istanbul, Berlin, and a bit of London too. And I had a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for your contribution and of course for this proposal.
Same.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
On this note, for all our YouTube viewers, thank you for watching this episode. If you like, hit like, share it with community members. You may find guest Twitter handle and the resources that were discussed in this meeting in the description box below. As per the analytics of Ethereum Cat Herders YouTube channel, over 85% of the viewers who are watching this series are not a subscriber yet. So please do subscribe to Ethereum Cat Herders YouTube for meetings and all educational resources. Those are coming up. Next week, we are going to have a special episode on a brief history of Ethereum's future with a special guest, Benjamin Edgington.